Hello and welcome to this, the finals of English Nationals. Autumn Burchett against Ross Broxup. The first and third seeds, we've got Four Color Energy against Mardu Vehicles. Autumn Burchett on the play here, but she's having to find a way of working with just a 4-card opening hand. Rough start for Autumn, but let's see how she's able to handle it.
Yeah, you have to do something very unfair to kind of clutch back from a 4-card hand. I remember back in the days I managed to win a standard game on turn 4 with 4 cards, but those were in the days of Dragonstorm. So here we have to be fair and attack with, creatures.
So we have a Toolcraft exemplar of the early play there from Ross Broxup. That kind of the ideal first creature of the game for him, potentially empowering out a turn 2 attack for 3, and with a Thraben Inspector he will have the appropriate artifact, assuming there's no removal, but an Abrade from Autumn Burchett. If you had to pick a way of trying to stay in this game, early removal was definitely going to be part of it.
It is. Ooh, she actually has a tracker, and that might be one of the best ways she can come back from a turn 4. 4-card mulligan. If she manages to draw a ton of cards with this tracker, and Ross does not have a removal, she might be good at be in a reasonable position. And I like her casting it here on turn 3, because this is going to come down to whether Ross has a removal or not, because she needs to draw more than one card from the tracker to have a chance. Unfortunately, Ross has the Unlicensed Integration together with the black mana, and hopes for Autumn Burchett looks quite gloomy at this point.
We know that there's just a land left in hand here for Autumn Burchett. She is drawing fairly thin here. Everything coming up Broxup in this game 1.
So we have another shot here. If Autumn can maybe draw Chandra this turn, that could be something, but it seems like she draws a Botanical Sanctum, and if there's a Gideon coming down here, it is. I think we're gonna have a very, very quick game 1.
Yes, here we see it. Already a Knight ally in play, thanks to that Gideon ally of Zendikar. Autumn drawing off the top. What do we have here?
Could it be a Glorybringer?
A Glorybringer would be lovely, especially if there's an untapped land to go along with.
We know there's an untapped land because of the game trill being untapped on turn 3. So we know it's either Autumn. I didn't see whether it was a mountain or forest, but either of them.
Well, the fact that an Ether Hub played means that Ross actually, if he's paying attention, knows that there's still that basic land in hand. Just gets in here for big hits. I think at this point Autumn has to recognise that it's going to be a sticky wicket if she wants to win this one.
You can say that. I think Ross has a backup Gideon if anything goes wrong.
Cultivator's Caravan,
I haven't seen that one in a while.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a big old beater when you need it to be. A couple of clues now, thanks to those Thraben Inspectors, but I don't know if Ross is ever going to even get a chance to crack them. Autumn Burchett scoops them up. Game 1 going to Ross Broxup, and now if Autumn wants to take away the title, she's going to have to win 2 games on the bounce.
Yeah, definitely, Tim. And here, usually games slow down a little bit post-board. You can kind of convert your game plan into being able to answer your opponent's threats more directly and efficiently, meaning that high-powered cards such as, say, Sky Sovereign or Scarab God or whatever it may be has higher impact and are more likely to be cast. And so game's gonna slow down, and I think, it doesn't really favor either player a ton. If Ross has, for example, a couple of Walking Blisters in his deck, he has a chance to board those out. And he also improves a little bit here.
Well, if it's about 50-50, then one has to think that Ross Broxup has to feel fairly good about his chances, because an even split would put him as the ultimate victor in this matchup.
Indeed. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting, hopefully interesting game more than this one.
Yeah, it would be unfortunate after having had so many absolutely nail-biting games in this top 8 if our finals did prove to be a relatively quick and easy affair. But you know what? If that happens, we'll still have had a fantastic weekend. We have seen a lot of great play this weekend and various interesting innovations on decks. And I'm kind of happy that we've got a chance to see variations on vehicles coming back. The innovations that originally came from France that were in the hands of Quentin Martin this weekend with his red-white, I'm going to call it Dwarves Vehicles deck.
Yep, I'm in for that.
Seemed very cool indeed. If you're looking for a last chance to do cool things in Standard with Gideon Ally of Zendikar in the mix, that might be a reasonable choice for you. Of course, this is kind of the swan song for Standard as it currently stands, sort of fat Standard, if you will, with lots and lots of sets in it. Going to be on a little diet with Ixalan, going to have to replace all of those sets with some dinosaurs and pirates.
Well, I guess, there's a lot of, Dinosaurs are pretty big, so I'm sure they could fill the gap just fine.
Yeah, I would imagine so. And we see that sideboarding, each of these players does have access to the other's deck list, so they are going to have maximum levels of information to work with. Should not be any surprises in these last few games. And in fact, here Ross is saying, can I just check out the text on one of your cards? I want to figure out, just make sure that I've not forgotten how everything works, because ultimately it just saves time rather than having to call a judge and say, can you show me the text of such and such a card? These guys will ultimately be teammates at the World Magic Cup in Nice.
Might as well get friends at this point, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Even if they don't hang out too much beforehand, they will be spending time together in Nice trying to help out Team England. Currently, Team England, the best it's done with a quarterfinals finish at the World Magic Cup, where Fabrizio Anteri, David Inglis, Francisco Giorgio, and one more whose name I'm momentarily blanking on, made it all the way.
I think you're impressive that you remember 3 of them.
Came super close. Ultimately, did not quite get there. But you know what? England would love to be able to get some trophies in that cabinet. It's been a little while.
Seems like it's interesting here because Ross is kind of looks like he's in pain when he's trying to figure out how to board here, which is surprising because 4-color energy has to be the kind of deck on everybody's radar at this point. It has had the most people show up with Timur. It's the most common deck, even online as in real tournaments before this, and having a good sideboard strategy against that ready to go at the tournament is paramount. I think.
This may simply be a matter of the weight of the situation. While Ross has played in a couple of Grand Prix, he's never got past day 1 in a Grand Prix. So in terms of his premier events experience, the World Magic Cup is going to be a very big deal for him. Autumn, meanwhile, she's actually had a really good year or so. She finished in 11th place at one of the 4 Pro Tours that she's played.
Oh, impressive.
And actually was in the running for both Constructed Master, I think it was, and Rookie of the Year for a while. So she definitely has experience at the highest level, and she's played in 10 GPs, she thinks, roughly, and has had a top 25 finish at GPs twice. So,
how many GPs did you play in so far, Tim?
In my life, less than 10.
Really?
Maybe about 10. I don't know. I've been doing an awful lot of coverage of them, and that doesn't leave me with too many other weekends to play. But yeah, GP's a fantastic place to both get experience, and if you're looking to qualify for an event like Nationals, there's a lot of Planeswalker points knocking around.
At GPs, for sure. I wonder how many I played. I literally have no idea.
I was trying to figure out how many events I've covered the other day, and I ran out of fingers and toes pretty quickly.
Fair enough. I'm going to need a few more set of hands if I'm going to be able to count mine, but I have no idea, actually.
But it is something that experience does matter, and Autumn has a little bit more experience going into this final. She'll have to leverage all of it if she's going to win 2 games on the bounce here, having dropped the first one in relatively straightforward fashion after those running mulligans in Game 1. Maybe we'll see some mulligans from Ross in Game 2 to kind of even the score a little bit in that regard.
You can see the players' faces here before they're entering 7. Autumn, she looks calm as ever, and Ross, I mean, you can kind of see he's a little bit nervous.
I mean, yeah, to look at their faces, you would assume that it was Awesome that was 1 game up.
Yeah, and experience kind of tells the tale her.
All right, looks like we are ready to kick things off. Both players keeping on their 7, which is a nice departure from the little interlude that we had before. Autumn doesn't start on 2 energy. That would be pretty good for the 4-color energy deck.
It would make Long Tusk Club a whole lot better.
I mean,
if it wasn't even good enough.
It's just a 3/3 for 2 now.
That gross, no big deal.
Yeah, no big deal.
No big deal.
All right, so
seems like Autumn has a pretty good hand. Oh, don't go out to 3 here, Autumn. That would be embarrassing.
Yeah. All right, so our energy all sorted out now, and we have a Servant of the Conduit, meaning that we will be going up to 3 energy on turn 2, and of course that means acceleration, color fixing, all of that good stuff that we've come to associate with the 4-color energy deck. All working out for Autumn thus far. Meanwhile, no 1-drop for Ross Broxup, and that meaning that the Heart of Kiran he plays on turn 2, it can't be crewed just yet.
Yeah, we have kind of the premier 2-drops from both decks here being played on turn 2. Interestingly enough, Autumn chose not to play a Cub on turn 2. I think I would have preferred her to play the Cub instead of the Servant, because she doesn't really have a Chandra or, per se, Bristling Hydra to kind of curve into. Maybe she has a Tidus Tracker. That would make sense, but then it wouldn't make sense to cast a attune with Aether, because then she can't cast it before playing a land to get that clue for sure, so to say.
Yeah, I guess that when you get right down to it, if you look at a Mardu vehicles list that misses its 1-drop, how many 2-drops is it going to play that are going to block that Long Tusk Cub on turn 2? It's not going to use Scrap Heap Scrounger. Heart of Kieran can't do it. And if there were 1-drops, you'd expect to have seen them on turn 1. So yeah, maybe the Long Tusk Cub early might have been interesting.
It's possible that she wants to protect it from a fail push, but I think the upside of being able to attack with it on turn 2 on the play is a lot higher. I mean, the upside of Long Tusk Cub definitely goes down for every turn that goes in the game, and it's on its best on turn 2. And the most important drops for Autumn is on turn 2 and turn 5, so if you play Cub into then Servant, and then you can play a 5-drop, I think that's a better line. But here we are, we have a Liliana. I did not expect Liliana to come in this matchup. Liliana is pretty good at crewing Heart. It does not choose to crew Heart on this turn, trying to save it here from the onslaught of the 2 creatures that Autumn has, but it's very scary actually to bring in Liliana, because it's so easily dealt with say Glorybringer or ongoing pressure, especially on the draw.
Well, we'll see soon enough what pressure Autumn Burchett has to deploy here. You see that Rogue Refiner there turned upside down just to indicate that it was targeted by Liliana, the Last Hope's ability last turn, just keeping things as clear as possible to both her and her opponent.
So we see an attack here, and we know that Autumn has an Abrade in her hand, so if Ross goes for the block, she's actually gonna braid the Heart, and that's gonna kill Liliana as well, losing 1 loyalty to crewing that Heart, and Autumn kind of gets it all here. And this is an amazing turn for her, and it's gonna put her in far ahead in the driver's seat at this point.
And Long Tusk Cub with 6 energy, Ross Broxup, he's gonna have to get something going here pretty quickly.
Yeah, this is why I didn't prefer to crew the vehicle. I mean, sure, Ross has another Heart in his hand, but Liliana would be really nice to have on this board when he's gonna cast, say, a Gideon that he has in his hand. Then he would have a much easier way of protecting his Gideon. The Heart would have possibly been alive at this point if it didn't crew. Say that Autumn has a Harness Lightning instead. She has a lot more protection for now 2 Planeswalkers play. So Ross kind of lost it all by being a tad bit greedy to kind of, come in and eat up one of the attacking creatures.
All right, so Thalia Heretic Cathar coming along on turn 4 for Ross Broxup here. His first actual creature of the game, and coming along now will mean that future creatures and lands or non-basic lands, should I say, for Autumn Burchett will come into play tapped. But Autumn already has a fair amount of mana to work with, and the only creature that is really going to be hurt by coming into play tapped on this board would be a Glorybringer. That would mean it couldn't attack immediately.
And I mean, Autumn is not really looking to block at this point, so she doesn't really mind her potential blockers coming into play tap, because Ross doesn't really have an option to attack here.
So here comes Long Tusk Cub, currently a 2/2, but with 3+1/+1 counters, potentially thanks to all of that energy sat in Autumn's energy pool.
And Autumn's gonna pump it twice to have 4 energy after damage. Let's see if she's gonna pump it another time. I think it's pretty clear that Ross does not have a fail push at this point. I think it would have played it on turn 1, or not let this many iterations of Long Tusk go through.
So yeah, that's a full quarter of Ross's life total just getting eaten by that Cub. 2 energy coming back after the damage has gone on from combat, and there's follow-up plays for Autumn. If it's a creature, it will come into play tapped, but you know what? I don't think that Autumn's going to mind all too much.
Nope. Just a Rogue Refiner. Gotta remember that it's tapped. Somebody should fix that. There we go.
Draws a card, gets some energy. All the wheels are rolling for Autumn Burchett here in this game too, in a quite sort of sharp turnaround for how things went in game 1, where an Abrade was about all she wrote.
Yep, and we have basics here, so this Long Tusk Cub is going to come out as well. I think there is not really a reason to hold back. I wouldn't believe there would be something like a Fumigate in Ross's deck.
And of course, Autumn has seen the full list, so she would know if that was something to concern herself with.
Yeah. Yeah, Autumn is firmly in the driver's seat. Sure, Folly holds on the Rogue Refiners and the Servants, but I mean, this Long Tusk Cub, they're out for blood at this point, and here we have 2 removal spells.
one of those Long-Tusk Cubs cut down in its prime, and Heart of Kiran coming along as well as a potential blocker. But you know what? That Long-Tusk Cub that's already in play with 3+1/+1 counters, that's already a sizable enough threat that Dad's car is not going to be big enough to block neatly. Attune with Ether generating a little bit more energy.
I actually like this play because we know Ross has Gideon. So if he plays Gideon next turn and Thalia and Heart of Kiran kind of holds off the smaller creatures on this board, there's potential for a Night Ally to be able to block this Long-Tusk Cub every turn until Ross draws a removal for it, and by that turn he can make an ally every turn and start to get ahead. However, we know that Autumn also has a Maelstrom Wanderer in hand, which has Trample, which is slightly problematic, and I like this attack a lot. I mean, these small creatures, they don't really do that much, and at this point sacrificing, say, a Rogue Refiner for 5 extra damage is definitely worth it, because it kind of, shortens down our clock a whole turn here.
Yeah, this is the kind of attack that I don't think we'd necessarily see from everyone. There'd be some people that were a bit timid about sending a creature to its death simply to get through more damage, but in terms of the length of the game that we're looking at here, it does potentially make for knocking an extra turn off that clock.
Yeah, I like pumping. Let's see. Yeah, I like pumping it all, because that means that it's more likely that a small creature that goes through next turn is going to be lethal. And we also have Trample on the Mason Wanderer, meaning that every point of damage at this point is hugely relevant. And holding back mana for, say, if you draw a Verloverdoso, etc., matters a whole lot less.
Okay, there is that Maelstrom Wanderer, and Ross Broxup here. So many different things to worry about. That Wanderer is a 6/6 Vigilance Trample creature, and at the moment, on the face of things, he just simply doesn't have enough blockers to deal with either that or, even all of the other creatures on the board.
Right, Woodland Wanderer, not Maelstrom Wanderer.
Yes, Maelstrom Wanderer would also be quite impressive, but for different reasons.
For very different reasons. Well, commander cards sneaking into standard. Well, no big deal. At least it's the right colors, right? Isn't it Teamer color?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep. All right.
It's a commander card, but even without it, Autumn Burchett very much in charge, at least of this game.
It definitely seems like it. I'm not really sure Ross has any outs. Ross sees this as well, scoops up his card, and we're going to go to the final game.
The finals game. I think
it's the final of the final.
So this is for Autumn Burchett to get the sweep on Nationals,
not
lose a game at any point. Oh, sorry, not lose a match at any point in this tournament. Did take a draw in the final round of the Swiss. Didn't need to play Kingmaker, Dream Crusher maybe in the final round.
Yeah, as we can see, Autumn is first seed regardless, so a draw didn't really matter for her position in the top 8. So she took a draw, a well-needed break, possibly got some food, went to the bathroom, did it, all the things.
Yeah, it was a draw with Niels as well, so got a chance to get on the right side of her team captain.
Right, and drawing with Niels is actually quite favorable, because if Niels is on the top 8 and does well, and it's going to be a pass down if Niels comes to the finals. So that's like a 3 position for her to kind of draw in. So that actually higher her own chances of doing
Interesting stuff. Yeah, I hadn't really considered it in those terms, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, well, I had the same situation myself, so it's a lot easier for me to know, but there we go. Okay.
Happy with the Swedish team that you're going to be taking to Nice?
Yeah, I think it's going to be fine. I don't know the people from the get-go, but I think we're going to have a good time.
Absolutely. In my experience, the World Magic Cup, probably the most fun Premier level tournament that exists in the entire year.
I actually like it quite a lot. It can be pressure at first, it's jamming people together, working as a team, but when you get that out of the way, it's an excellent tournament. There's a lot of, the atmosphere is really good, and there's high level play still, so it's a little bit above, and there's always interesting formats going on.
Team competition just in general is a blast. It's so much. It's so great, even if you're not relying on your teammates to lean over and say, don't do that or do this. Just knowing that you've got friends by your side, so that if you happen to lose, you've still got hope that you can win. And also, if you win, you feel like you're not just doing it for yourself, you're doing it for your teammates. Exactly. And in this case, you're doing it for your entire country.
Winning is a whole lot of fun, but winning together, it's even more fun.
Yes.
It's just the way it is.
Absolutely. Every team competition I've ever played, I've had a blast at. And it was a real decision for me as to whether or not I wanted to cover this Nationals, because I was qualified and I was really tempted to, chance my arm, put my hat into the ring, as it were, and see if I could make it through. Ultimately, I did get kind of swayed by the fun that I have teaming up in this sort of way with all sorts of commentators. But yeah, one of these years, I'm going to play in nationals.
Yeah, you should.
These players just figuring out their sideboarding. Looks like Ross is going back to the drawing board a little bit as we go to game 3. If there was pressure before going into game 2, that pressure on him must only have multiplied a little bit, as he's now absolutely got to win this next one if he's going to be able to lift that trophy.
Yeah, first time that Ross is being able to be on the play, so it's possible that he has different kind of setup in a sideboard for the play and draw, which makes sense in a lot of matchups. And of course, he wasn't pre-sideboarded game 1, so he had to change his deck all 3 games.
Yeah, just figuring out the details. Ross, a member of Team Mana Gaming, he plays out of Eastbourne, which is his local game store is Mana Gaming. About 10 or so, maybe a few more players have come up from that part of the world. Autumn, she's from London. She plays at Leisure Games. There's not a specific team that she's a part of, but she's very active on the GP circuit. I'm sure that she's got plenty of people to test with as and when she so chooses. And of course, she's clearly found the right answer for this format, at least for this weekend. Hard to say, obviously, moving forward what the best choices will be. But right now, she's made enough good choices that she has got herself a trip to Nice.
Yeah, indeed. One of the lone teamer decks left out there in this swath of different kind of modded vehicles decks, or red-white dwarfs, or whatever you want to call them in the top 8.
Toolcraft Exemplar decks?
Sure. Freeman Inspector decks.
Works for me. So, all right, looks like Ross is putting away the deck list. That means that he's ready to shuffle up. We're pretty close here.
Time to put pedal to the metal, my friend.
Oh yeah, start your engines, folks, because one game left and we will have our champion. There is a third, fourth place playoff going on elsewhere. We're not going to jump in on that one. Ultimately, this is what it's all about, and we will get a chance to find out soon enough who our overall victor is here in Derby, England.
And for all the marbles, Ross versus Autumn. It's going to be interesting to see. Calmly shuffling here, very methodically. Maybe trying to calm his nerves a little bit, which I understand they are at a place at the moment.
Yeah, it's kind of nice, I think, sometimes to have a bit of a ritual to how you do your preparations. Yes. It means that even if you have got nerves, you can get back into focus by just doing that thing that you've done hundreds, if not thousands of times before, which is shuffling up for a game of Magic.
Yeah, I remember I had a ritual before that I always table shuffle twice between each time I had to shuffle my deck. Not during the game, but, between each mulligan, and that is not legal anymore, so I'm not doing it anymore. But it kind of felt like whenever I did not do that, I felt like I was, too lazy to kind of, do my best. So it kind of got into my head. But this was a few years ago.
Yeah, I think.
But I can kind of see that mentality happening. Now I feel usually confident anyways, so I don't really care in that way, but I completely understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah, in some respects, it's not the details of what the ritual is so much as the fact that there is one that means that you can just center yourself for a minute, let yourself stop thinking about anything specific, the game, the match, the situation, the prizes for winning, what might happen if you lose, and you can just do your thing and then you're ready to play.
Play the game, see what happens.
Works for me.
That's the best way to think about it.
All right, so Ross has presented. Autumn just finishing up her shuffling here, and then we will have our last game.
All right. Happy faces in the finals. Understandable. They're both going to Nice. So
yeah, like these teammates, in some respects, the pressure off for them because they have both got the big prize, but this final prize, pretty important also.
Yep, off and on.
That moment where you get home after the weekend and you're talking to your friends, your family, and they say, "Oh, how was your weekend?" You say, "Well, now I'm the national champion at this game that I love." That's a pretty cool thing to be able to say to anyone.
Yep. Everybody understands what that means. I mean, that means you're, right now, kind of the best of all of them, right?
Yeah. All right, 7 cards. Are we going to see a 7-card start from both players? I really hope so.
I think that's a keep from Ross. It's really hard to see. He's trying to hide his card very well. I think I'm seeing... Okay,
no,
I guess not.
We've got a mulligan there.
And on the other side, I think we're seeing 2 attunes plus Aether Hub as the only land, Glorybringer, Harness Lightning. I think that's what I catched.
Yeah, I mean...
Seems reasonable to me.
Lands and spells, baby. Lands and spells. That's what we're looking for.
However, Autumn has a little bit awkward amount of it. I mean, the energy kind of refuels that Aether Hub, but you don't want to be using Aether Hub too many times because it kind of lessens the power of the other, energy enablers in our deck. And
6 cards. Is this one a winner for Ross?
Seems like Ross slowed down a lot in this matchup. We can see Oath of Chandra here as well.
Okay.
And she's going to 5, so ooh.
Could this be a turnabout after game 1?
Yeah, this can't be feeling too well for Ross.
And this is Ross on the play. He lost the second game, so he's not going to get the benefit of a draw on the first turn.
Yeah, this hand too has to be quite a spectacular to get him there. Ooh.
I mean, I guess that one difference is that Autumn Burchett's deck, it has a little bit more trouble just immediately punishing a slow draw from its opponent. Mardu vehicles, if you give it free reign for 3-4 turns, you can be essentially dead. 4-color energy, it will struggle to kill you quite as quickly, which might in principle mean that Mardu vehicles can pull out of this, but it's a tough one.
This hand is quite a sample hand. There's a Thraben Inspector Heart, a Liliana Last Hope, a Thalia, and then a Mountain. That's literally the only land probably in a deck that doesn't count either of these spells. So Ross is going to 4, much like Autumn did in the first game, and I guess that solidary mulligans is happening.
I mean, I guess it works out that if Ross wins from here, then he's got quite the story to tell.
Oh yeah, he does. Yeah. Remember one time when I was in the finals?
But I mean, think about how Paolo's discussion when he won the last Pro Tour.
Ooh.
He got a chance to say, I had all of these mulligans to 5, and then I found a way, and it all worked out. He won the Pro Tour having had just a crazy amount of mulligans.
I think I'm seeing how obnoxious is. I think I saw double heart in Ross's hand, and how obnoxious is it to draw 2 of the same legendary on starting hand on 4? I mean, it's not very likely.
It's not ideal, but let's see what Autumn Burchett's got going on here.
And Autumn draws a land immediately, so I think her mana is going to be humming pretty quickly. She only kept 1 land with 2 attunes, but this is going to help her to play a lot more untapped mana.
Well, we've got a second land from Ross. That's a good start. Here's a Heart of Kieran. Autumn Burchett, she will be left shaking her head if Ross can find his way out of this one.
So I think what Ross is looking for is basically just 2 lands. We know he has a Gideon in his opening hand. I think that's one of the few cards that kind of pull the weight back in mulliganing to such a low amount. We can see a hand full of attunes
so a little shortcut
and removals.
The first attune with Ether is going to fetch a forest, which allows the casting of the second attune with Ether, but they're all being resolved at the same time. As long as there is a forest as one of these 2 attune with Ether targets, that one coming to play tap, the other one going to hand, it just speeds things up a little bit. The last thing that Ross wants is to have to watch on for 3 or 4 minutes as 2 of these are resolved, plus all the shuffling, and then he untaps and says, well, not drawn a land, so you can just carry on.
The thing you want to do when you mulligan to 5 or 4, etc., is you don't want to match up with your opponent's cards, because every time Autumn can respond with 1 card of their own to trade with one of Ross's, she gets that much more ahead because she starts on so many more cards in her opener. But if you manage to land something that Autumn doesn't have a good response for, that card can snowball so much that you actually get back in the game. That's why I was talking about Tracker in Autumn's game, where she mulliganed to 4. If Ross doesn't have a removal, that can snowball. Same with Gideon and Ross's starting end here. I mean, we can see a lot of removal in Autumn's deck, but there's not a lot of ways to actually pressure a potential Gideon. But that means Ross has to draw 2 lands as well to kind of get there.
So no blue mana at the moment for Autumn, and just the 1 Thraben Inspector as a target. I feel it looks like she's going to be a bit cagey here. Maybe sit on some removal, kill the first creature that can actually crew that Heart of Kieran.
Or the Heart itself. Oop, there we have a land. Okay, this can actually get interesting. I think Autumn doesn't have a single creature in her hand. Yeah,
it's looking like unable to punish early on this.
This is actually interesting. Here we have the all-star of the format, pretty much.
Thraben Inspector finds a little Eldrazi.
Ooh, but no, hold on. I think that's a negate and a Glorybringer, so that's kind of tightens together all, the openings that Ross could have. And I mean, we know she has either hub, so she has blue as well, and I believe she drew a Woodland Wanderer.
Yeah, that a big one in every sense.
Yeah, I think this is gonna be. So I think what Autumn's thinking about here, if she casts this Woodland Wanderer, what if Ross has the Unlicensed Integration, kills it on a turn, and then he draws a land to play that, Gideon, and I think that's the only way Autumn thinks she can lose this game. So I kind of like this play, holding up the negate for the Gideon, because it's going to be a lot harder to actually kill when the Heart is there to block the Glorybringer for a later turn.
Yeah, it's interesting. Basically, because of how few cards Ross has started on, Autumn can effectively say, I'm just going to play around the worst case scenario because every other scenario is really not that bad for me.
And this works out perfectly for Autumn, because now Ross finds a creature to crew his Heart with, and this is really what she wanted, to be able to kill that Heart before she can deploy a Glorybringer later to maybe take care of a Gideon. We knew about the 2 Magma Sprays, so that had a solid target. And now I think she's firmly ahead in the driver's seat. She can land that Medicine Wanderer if she wants to, which I think is a better play than...
Woodland Wanderer, is that?
Yes. Sorry.
Yes, it is.
Here we go again. I guess every man has his card with some card names.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So it looks like there is another basic land for Autumn Burchett. That means that she will be able to get up to 4 different colours for the most powerful Woodland Wanderer in the land.
And the Either Hub is going to tap for a white or a blue at this point and cast Woodland Wanderer for 4 extra counters, meaning it's a 6/6 Vigilance Trample. Nothing to scoff at, really. And now this Gideon is starting to starting looking a little bit pale in Ross's hand. And
looks like actually Autumn decided not to use the energy there, just cast it for 3.
I think that's fair. I don't think it matters that much whether Woodland Wanderer is a 6/6 or a 5/5. This position, a 5/5 still survives, say, Cut and Ribbons, for example, and it's possible that she wants to preserve that energy for later, so she can use the Either Hub and you know, have 2 activations of another energy spender, basically.
I mean, I think that there may be another Wanderer imminent, which would be a great way of closing the door on this, the deciding game in the finals.
I think I can see our Rogue Refiner in there too. Yeah. Autumn just kind of has it all.
Just sat here going, wow, it must be nice to be able to cast all of these powerful things and have them stick around. As it is, he's been making a great pretense at having a real game here. It's just a matter of when you start on 4 cards, yes, even if you're able to do some cool things on maybe the first 2 or 3 turns, it's very, very quickly you end up out of gas.
Indeed. And Autumn has kind of been given all the time she needs to set up a perfect hand to kind of handle the situation here.
Rogue Refiner drawing a card, generating a little bit more energy for Autumn, having to spend 1 on Ether Hub, but getting that back with interest thanks to the Rogue Refiner ability.
Yep. And so this is going to be interesting. Ross kind of has... This Gideon is not looking so cool anymore, as I said earlier, and I believe we're going to see, is this an Anguish Unmaken or... Ooh, Painful Truths. Alright, drawing some cards to get back into this game. It has to be quite a string of cards. There we see a Fail Push.
An Oath of Chandra, I believe, also in there.
Okay, Fail Push with some help from a Revolt trigger can actually take care of a Woodland Wanderer. And Oath of Chandra could potentially get that Rogue Refiner. I'm not saying that Ross is completely back into the game. Ooh. He should take black mana in response to this. Oh, Ross has missed it. This was huge. If he took a black mana from the Spire of Industry... Hold on. He can't activate that for black anymore. He needed to float a black and then let the spell resolve. So the Revolt trigger happens, and then he has that black mana to take care of the Woodland Warrior, because we know that Autumn has negate and stuff to cast, and I mean this costs Ross an extra 5 life, and I think this is just lethal. Yeah,
we have 5, 9, 12 coming through, and that is the ball game. Congratulations to Autumn Burchett. A tiny misstep there from Ross Broxup, but to be perfectly honest, starting on 4 cards, he was going to be in rough shape no matter which way you slice it. And we have our national champion, Autumn Burchett, will be our victor here. That's the end of our live magic here. Stay tuned. We've got a little bit more for you right after these messages. We can hear little bits of scattered round of applause around the room because we do now have our team fully set. Ross Broxup, it was a bit of a funny final there, to be perfectly honest. We only had 1 game that really showed both of the decks working to their full potential, but hard to argue with what Autumn Burchett's been able to put together in this weekend. She has not lost a match all weekend, and you know what happens when you don't lose a match all weekend?
You win the event.
Pretty much, yeah. She won the entire tournament with the Teema Energy deck that she was working with, a 25-year-old from London. Teema Teamer Energy splashing the Scarab God. Didn't see it show up too much in the finals there, but didn't need it to. Up against Ross Broxup's energy deck, and it looks like we have Autumn coming across. We will get her in the booth just briefly, get a few words from her, and we will be able to close things out here. But it looks like we are just about... we'll get you out of here, Joel. You've done fine work all weekend, and I'm going to replace you with England's national champion. We're going to have England time here in England as we finish things up here in Derby. Autumn, welcome. Congratulations. It's been a wild ride.
It really has. Yeah. Oh my God.
I recognize kind of a shaking moment. Like, this is a big deal. Obviously, going into the final, kind of nice to know that you already had locked up that World Magic Cup slot. Potentially a little bit of pressure off there. That means that you could just kind of enjoy that last match. And after you had the mulligan to 4 in game 1, it must have felt like Turnabout was fair play for that last game.
Like, when I mulled to 4 in my first game, I was like, obviously I'm happy I'm on the team, but I haven't lost all weekend. Can I just, get the plaque, please?
Yeah, not like this.
Yeah.
Just try and find a way of making sure that we have good games to the final. We obviously like to have good guys to commentate on the final as well. And then, to be honest, in that very last game, I thought that Ross actually put up a surprisingly strong fight, considering what he was working with.
It was a solid fight. We were actually joking. I don't know if you heard about, but during sideboarding before game 3 about, the whole transformational sideboard thing you see from Mardu sometimes.
Yeah.
And he just shuffled his whole board in just to throw me off.
Well,
and
that's fair enough.
I decided, even though Magma Sprays would be bad if he was on the control plan, I had to hedge. I had to respect the possibility that he could be on the aggro plan. And drawing the 2 sprays was...
Yeah,
I needed his draw to line up against mine. Otherwise, I was kind of mulling down a card, and then he hit the truths. But
yeah, absolutely. I mean, there were a few sort of moments in those games where you were able to just kind of consistently trade 1-for-1, and when your opponent's already down 3 cards, that 1-for-1 trade, plenty enough to be able to lock things up.
Absolutely.
So obviously now our England national team is all set. It's yourself, Niels Moller, and of course Ross Broxup himself. Bit of time to get some practice in before then. Are you guys going to be exchanging details and trying to meet up a little bit before Nice?
I don't know the exact plan. Niels has basically said, message him, we'll talk things through, but we are definitely going to be doing practicing, getting everything prepared.
And of course,
in some form.
Right now, England's still looking to get the big trophy in the cabinet. We've had a semi-finals finish in the World Magic Cup before. It'd obviously be lovely to see England go a little bit further. But for now, things all completed here in England. Thank you very much to all of you watching at home, from everyone on the coverage team, and of course, our new national champion, Autumn Burchett. Thank you and good night.